God's not to blame for all the bad things happening in your life. Yes, God is the essential cause of all things because He's the creator of all things, but He is never the blameworthy or culpable cause of evil, for such would be contrary to His character. Welcome to Life as God Intended. I'm glad you have joined me today for this broadcast. And please, if you haven't done so already, subscribe, like, and share these videos with others. And if you want to converse with me or correspond with me, please do so in the comment section below this video, or send me an email at LifeAsGodIntended.org. And if you have topics that you'd like to have discussed or questions that you'd like answered, please send those to me as well, and I'll do a broadcast on them. So in today's discussion, I'd like to consider a very important topic that's probably been on a lot of people's minds, maybe more so this year than maybe at any other time. And that is, why doesn't God stop bad things from happening in 2020? My, this has been quite the year, hasn't it? And as I already alluded to, more people than usual will currently be asking this question during 2020. In fact, I just had a friend that told me the other evening, 2020 at the beginning of the year, the Christians were all saying that this is going to be such a wonderful year of vision, 2020 vision. Well, I think we all need glasses by this time because of all the events that have transpired. So we would all agree that this has been one of the strangest and no doubt most difficult years that we've ever faced as a nation and frankly globally. So why do bad things happen? With all that can go wrong and sometimes does, I think probably the thing that people fear the most about things going wrong is death. Death is often man's greatest concern. Well, the Apostle Paul tells us in Romans chapter 5 that death came into the world through Adam. You've probably read it back in Genesis 3, where we see how Adam and Eve were tempted by the serpent, and they yielded to that temptation, resulting in the consequence of dying you shall die. Job reminds us that suffering is a mystery, which leads many to ask the question, why? Why doesn't God stop bad things from happening? To start with, we must begin with God's purpose for creating the earth and us human beings. You see, God created the physical universe for us to live, and our physical universe must have natural laws to govern it for our own well-being. Imagine how chaotic it would be if there weren't these universal laws that we could count on and know then how to live in an orderly manner thereon. So, for example, if you're climbing a ladder and you misstep and fall, you can be sure that gravity will be in effect, and that your sudden stop as you hit the ground will cause at least some bruises and potentially some broken bones. Now, let me ask you, did God cause you to fall? No. So then why the broken bones? Well, God created us as relational human beings with freedom of choice. And He did so that we might experience relational intimacy with Him, choosing to participate in a loving union relationship. And God made a perfect world where there was no sin and suffering. And as we already mentioned, one man's disobedience ruined it for all of us. It was Adam and Eve's choice. They ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and the consequences were catastrophic. Not only on the earth, which we would kind of refer to as paradise lost, but also its effect on us. Suffering, sin, death became the norm. In fact, even the first child born became a murderer. So, who's to blame for all this? Do we blame Adam? Do we blame God? Well, certainly we would agree that stuff happens that's not good. But who's to blame? Who's responsible? You see, those questions pose a basic logical premise that our society has seemed to start with. And that is that society always looks to someone to blame for everything that's happening. People seem to require a cause and effect premise for everything that happens, often requiring a cause to be blamed for every effect. Whether that cause is something that malfunctions at work and is mechanical failure, or whether it's within the family dynamic or in a work dynamic, or it's a personal failure. When blaming people, the cause and effect premise, notice it shifts to evaluating character. So all of a sudden now we become these character inspectors of somebody else. And we attempt to determine if it is good or evil. Do you see what we're doing? We tend to set ourselves up as the arbitrators of what is good and evil. And that's one of the consequences of the fall, where the serpent suggested that we could determine for ourselves and that we could know, like God, the difference between good and evil. And that, of course, is a flawed premise. So on this point, it would be important for us to understand that all character, regardless if it's good or whether it's evil, all character is derived from either God or Satan. Often, God gets blamed for allowing things to happen that are negative. I don't know that we give him a lot of credit all the time for all the positive good things that are happening, but boy, we certainly voice our opinion when bad things are happening. Is God to blame? Isn't he sovereign? Isn't he ultimately in control? People ask, why didn't God stop the bad things from happening if he's a good God? Well, let's see if we can understand. It is true that God is the essential cause of all things because he is the creator of all things. But, here's the holy but he is never the blameworthy or culpable cause of evil, for to ascribe such to him would be contrary to his holy, loving, good character. So what does that mean in layman's terms? It simply means that evil or bad things don't come from God. We cannot, therefore, claim that God purposes, causes, or orchestrates all things, especially such evil doing as rapes and murders and torture and disease, without impinging on God's absolute character of goodness. So, what can we understand? What we can see is that these types of events are God's tests, and not tests in the way that you and I may have thought about them. You see, God tests and examines His people in the midst of all situations, using His corrective and instructive and even directive purposes of discipline, soliciting us to allow for His character and perfect godliness to be the manifestation of our life. He wants us to choose to participate with Him, whereby our character is an expression of His goodliness, or His goodness, in response to and in the midst of the situations that we're confronted by. You know, those bad situations. Wow. Are you seeing it? God's purpose is always good, even when bad things are happening. What does that remind you of? Yeah, Romans 8:28. For we know that God causes all things to work together for good to those who love God and to those who are called according to His purpose. You see, that's where we go astray, isn't it? Because we're trying to make this our purpose. No, it's God's purpose. You see, people seem to be unwilling to accept the premise of the divine providence or divine mystery. You know, have you noticed that what God is doing is beyond your human logic, beyond the principle of cause and effect? In other words, you can't always figure it out, can you? No. But you may choose to trust a loving God who is for you. Our finite understanding will never comprehend the infinite ways of God. As Paul said in Romans 11:33, His ways are past finding out. Human logic will never figure out God logic. We must beware of humanistic premises that elevate the human mind as the final arbitrator of truth and reality. You see, by doing so, divine omnipotence, God's power, is replaced with human reasoning. And that would not be what you were designed to do. Mankind is always seeking to blame someone for what is happening in their lives. It is an attempt, often on our part, to be in control. And often we're unwilling to accept any responsibility or blame for ourselves. Instead, we're seeking to identify someone else to blame. Oh, isn't that convenient? Just like Adam and Eve sought to blame each other after the fall. Many today seek to blame another person for their action and seek to get off the hook of personal responsibility for their actions. Often blame is an attempt to balance personal guilt so we might feel justified. But the truth is, righteousness is the only justification, and righteousness is only found in Christ. So, don't blame God for your circumstances. Instead, receive His loving embrace in the midst of the storms of life. That's what we really need. We need to be loved. We need to be embraced. Yes, it's difficult. Yes, it's a trying time. Receive His full forgiveness, Christ's righteousness as yours, and stay focused on His goodness rather than on the bad things happening all around you. Choose to experience life as God intended, regardless of the chaos of 2020. We hope you were encouraged and blessed by this video. We would love to have your feedback and interact with you. If you have a testimony that relates to today's discussion, please share it below in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell so that each time we upload a video that you'll be notified. Be sure to check out our blog on our website, which is in the description below. And until next time, may you experience life as God intended.